Time for some tough chat.
Warning. The following segment on the Kyle and Jackie O Show may be confronting and distressing for some. Listener discretion is advised. This is Tough Chat.
It's about to get serious.
Now, okay, enough fun and games for this morning. Time to get serious. Rodney O's in the building, everyone.
Hey, Rodney.
Friend of ours.
Hey, Jack.
How are you, buddy?
How you doing, King? What you mean it's time to get serious? It's always been serious.
It's always serious for us, especially now. You and I have been talking all week on and off.
Yes.
Including just before you went on the protest march from Hyde Park through to Martin Place with a lot of Indigenous folks. Quite a few thousand people marched through the city.
Well, it's good to be back. You know what I mean? I'm the hottest radio personality that's not on air in this entire country. So it's good to be back,
Well,
and it's good to be inclusive.
That's a problem right there.
That's a problem right there. You got to be inclusive. I mean, you got to have from the inside that people can see that, hey, they look like me, they sound like me. I'm a part of that. I got to be a part of that, and that's what it's all about. The people in Australia now are starting to realize that is a problem, a big problem, a color problem, a being inclusive problem, and they've been shirking that responsibility. And now the killing of Mr. George has opened up this platform where people are really recognizing, hey, something is wrong here.
You being American, you came here when you were a teenager, right?
No, sir. I mean, you misled the people again,
right.
of course,
What have
as
I done
always.
then? Okay. When did you
shit.
come here then?
I came here in the early 1800s, and I decided to stay. Captain Cook wasn't doing shit right, so I decided to come in here and make it pop.
So, but you grew up.
But when did you actually? Because I was curious to know, like, what the difference is between Australians and Americans when it comes to racism in your experience.
Well, and I came here in the 80s. I was, in my just coming into my 20s, and I've been in this country now for 30 years. So I'm Australian too, and I love this beautiful sunburned country.
I know you do.
Yep.
You're a big fan of it.
And there's racism here, but people just aren't really seeing. It's really subtle here. You know what I mean? People say, "Oh, yes, all right." Now, Kyle, you're racist.
Am I?
Yeah, you're racist. You say some real racist shit out on the airways. Oh, but people, because you don't understand being black.
No, because I'm white.
Because you're white. That's exactly right, my friend. He's one of my best buds. But people just don't understand what it takes to be black. And people need to be shown that. And you guys need to tell people where to get that information, how to get that information.
So tell us some experiences that you've had that we don't have as white Australians. Tell us what your life's like. Some moments in time during the life of Rodney O where you've thought, whoa,
I went to
hang
Alice
on.
Springs. I like to work with the Indigenous people. We put a thing called the Hoops for Health, where we take Indigenous leaders and sports people and tell them not to drink and don't do drugs and better themselves.
Right.
We went to Alice Springs at the Lassiter's Resort Casino, and Leaping Leroy Loggins, a African-American from Baltimore, changed his citizenship, became an Australian, represented Australia.
Is that right?
You know, these people, we went up there, they would not let us stay in the hotel. They would not allow us to bring in Indigenous people that we went to meet in their community. But this was standard practice.
You weren't allowed yourself to stay in the hotel.
I was there as a guest, but we had guests that wanted to come and be with us at the hotel.
Not allowed in.
And they wouldn't even allow it in. And that was standard practice.
And was that a rule, or was that up to the discretion of the doorman,
That
for
was
example?
their standard practice up there in that camp. I mean, I went to a place called Owen Pelly, which is up in Arnhem Land.
Right.
Well, I go into a BP with my other brothers and sisters that are trying to teach Indigenous kids how to better themselves.
Yeah.
I'm standing in line trying to get a Gatorade. This white woman is at the end of the line, and she has haterade on her mind. She's the guy in the front just said, come right up the front and bypass us. So it's white privilege there in those lands.
Wow. So it's alive, and it's alive and well in the community still.
It is.
And what is there subtle things? You say sometimes racism in Australia is subtle.
Yes.
Is there anything people do, Rodney, that you think they should be aware of that they might not even realise they're doing? Like, I mean, you say some people are racist and they probably don't even think they're being racist.
That's right, because they don't know. I mean, now music is confusing a lot of shit around here nowadays. You're hearing the N-word in the radio.
You're
song.
allowed to sing the N-word as a white person or not?
Well, now you ain't allowed to do that shit. But I mean, they do it. They take liberty doing it. They just take liberty because they put it in their song and they say, well, they're doing it, I can do it. And then it's not for everyone.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Yeah, I mean that's
We don't
to
use
me
that word.
seems like it's an obvious thing. Like you just don't say that word. Do you find though that racism here is of a lesser degree than what it is in the States growing up?
No, I think it's on par. It's just that
Right.
now you're starting to see it in America. They're videoing it, and now it's being out there and seeing, and it's well and alive and true here in Australia too.
Wow, you're right.
And,
I didn't think like that. You're right. Now that because the world's such a smaller place, now everyone's got a video camera.
man,
You do see a lot more of it than you might have in the 90s because no one had video cameras.
that's right, and they didn't give a shit about it. I mean, I had a fight in King's Cross. I had a guy walk up to me in a venue, and he just called me a Nigga. Straight up. He just and I punched him right in his damn mouth. My man had to come out with a gun to protect me. I mean, so it's right across the board, all different kinds of people.
Oh yeah, sorry.
You go-
Sorry,
go ahead,
she's a
You don't
very
have to
heavy
stop.
breather, Rodney. Every time she breathes, you don't have to stop.
You don't have to stop. But what about police here? Because I think we like to think our police are fine. Do you ever feel like you're on the receiving end of racism if you've been pulled over or anything like that?
5-6 years ago, I was crossing over the Anzac Bridge,
Yeah.
and I had my daughter in the car with me. There was another car that was in front of me, and another truck that was in front of me, and they had some kind of a speed trap thing. They pulled me over. I was like third in line of this, and we're all close, driving.
So they're all doing the same speed limit that you're doing?
Yes, they were all doing, and they pulled me over. And
Right.
I got pulled over. I said, okay, yes, officer. Yes, he said you was speeding. But I said, man, I wasn't speeding, dude. I was just doing the same, as everyone else. You Americans, blah, 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 blah. And so he came at me like that. I gave him my license. He went back, made his call, came back to the window. And I said, Mike, can I have your name and your number and all that stuff? Because I wanted to identify him.
Yeah.
And he said, can I say this on? He said, off. You know what I mean? The dude told me to off, and he took my license and he threw it at my face. I went and leaned back, and it went past my daughter's
So
face.
your child sees this
So
as well.
my child was
So
exposed
your
to this.
child grows up seeing her father being treated like that from a police officer in Australia, then that is burnt into her mind forever. That's how the police treat us.
She knows, and this is what happens. When people see these things, they take on these behaviors, and some people just don't get it. They just don't get it.
What do you think we need to do as
Educate.
a community? Yeah, everyone says educate, but how? Everyone says everyone educate themselves, or what's the answer?
Educate themselves and others. Well, I have a friend named Brigette. She's going to come on because we have the African Americans in Australia.
I'll bring Brigette in.
And Bridget's going to come in, and we have some ideas to help, because this is what needs to be done. Education. There needs to be books that are read. There are movies that need to be seen. There are documentaries that need to be seen that people don't even know about or even exist.
Wow.
So you make a good point there, because since this has happened, there is a lot more information out there on social media that I'm seeing that even for me has been an eye-opener.
Yeah.
A lot of, when we talk about white privilege, for instance, now I always thought white privilege was just someone who was white and born into a privileged life, but that is not what white privilege is at all.
Yeah, what is white privilege? What do we need to know? Hi, Bridget.
Hello.
Welcome to the
Hey.
show. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate it. Is that the right microphone, Adam?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Just checking. I want to make her a bit louder.
Maybe come in on,
come
on the
in on
mic
that.
pretty
Close on the
close.
mic. Sound
Okay,
like the
got
O.
it.
That's better. Yeah.
Okay, Bridget. Jackie, would you like to just repeat that question again for me?
Well,
Bridget can
I
answer.
always thought white privilege was when they referred to someone who's white born into privilege, but I was reading the other day that that's not what white privilege is at all. It applies to everybody who is white.
Yeah, exactly. It's something as simple as I was explaining to a girlfriend yesterday. Especially back in the States, it doesn't necessarily apply to me now here in Australia because it's a little bit different. But, for example, going to the grocery store, I would get dressed. And the reason why I would get dressed appropriately, quote unquote, is because if I didn't, I know that I would be followed once I get into the store, whether it be the grocery store, whether it be...
Do you mean dressed up, fancy yourself up, get dressed up in your better clothes? Is that what you mean?
Well, I'm not talking about a prom gown, but
right.
I'm just talking about,
Not just tracksuits and a hoodie like anyone else can go to the shop.
Because if you go
attention.
to the store looking like that, that will draw attention. But not only that, when you show up to go check out, what happens is if you pay for your purchase with a credit card, they'll ask you for additional ID. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But you didn't ask the person in front of me for additional ID.
Assuming
That's right.
Exactly.
it's more of a risk that you're trying to
Exactly.
commit fraud. Is that what they're saying?
Exactly, just because of the color of your skin. And there's certain things that, and look, I don't think white privilege is a bad thing. I'm saying use that privilege to also educate other people about things that you don't have to deal with on a regular basis.
Right. See, in my world, and Rodney, you know this, I was a homeless teenager. I live half here, half in America. I've got friends in the music business, a lot of different. I've got gangster friends, criminal friends, lawyers, surgeons, movie stars. I don't care what you do, where you come from, who you are. I like who I like. And all these people that I surround myself with are great people. Even if they've done 10 years in prison and they're out. Like, these are white people, black people, Asian. It doesn't matter to me.
But you're an anomaly. You'll say and do anything with everyone.
Yeah, exactly. But I just thought everyone was like that. And I'm aware there's racism, but I've always thought racism, like growing up, I've always thought, oh, that's a white hillbilly who just hates black people for no reason. That's what I always thought.
He would have kicked your ass if that was the case.
But that's what I always thought racism is, someone who just doesn't like black people or Asians or Mexicans for no reason other than because they're not white. That's what I thought when I was growing up.
Yeah, no, it's deeper than that. And I think sometimes it's the unknown things that white people say to black folks, like, "Oh God, just get over it." All lives matter. Let's just make it an everybody thing. Blue lives matter. What happened to an African American man.
Yeah,
black man.
And just like Rodney was saying, the only difference is that it's being filmed. Thank God.
Yeah.
But on average, 3 to 4 of these murders, and killings are happening every single week.
Dang.
And you have little black boys and little black girls that are seeing this.
Yeah.
And we're talking about intergenerational trauma that they have to deal with.
Not just seeing it, but hearing their families, their uncles,
Exactly.
their aunties, their parents cry, all the emotion, all
Absolutely.
the anger.
My daughter was crying last night. I spoke to my child. She's in Melbourne, and I'm here, and it's painful.
Yeah.
I can't hug my kid. I can't, explain to her.
What did she ask you?
Well, she's now realizing some of her friends aren't really her friends. They don't on the same page. She's a black woman and she's got white friends. Now, the ignorance of this entire scenario has led some of them to say some real stupid shit, and it's hurt her.
When you said that you went to, if you didn't dress up to go to the shops, you'd be followed around. Are you talking about by staff of the shop thinking you're going to lift something
You're going to
from
steal
there?
some shit. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
If I walked in there dressed like this right now.
And you look good.
I look great, but yeah, Mr. Security might think I'm trying to lift his diamond rings.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you stop that? That is so... how do you change someone's personality?
It's not even necessarily
Stop
if
it.
you dress, you have your tracksuit on or you're looking sporty or whatever. There was a doctor that was outside of his home and he was, packing his van up because he was taking some food to some people in the community.
Yeah.
And they rolled up and arrested him. Like, why?
Color of his skin.
That's unbelievable, though. It's true, though, but it's unbelievable.
But it's also a lot of anxiety. I mean, I remember I was, back home and I was driving in a car with my nephew and, a cop car passed us by and he was just really, really nervous. And I'm like, dude, what's going on? Yeah. And for a lot of African American people, when they see police, it isn't like, hey, they're here to save us or they're going to provide security or peace.
They're
it's
coming
like,
to get me.
I could die because they're watching it and they're seeing it and they're hearing the stories. And that's really scary. And although that isn't my lived reality here, even a couple of times when I've gotten pulled over, I'm like,
You're worried.
I feel the anxiety, and that just comes from something that happened way back in the day. But also,
it's still
just
alive now.
Yeah,
though. Yeah.
it is.
I've got a friend who's a hip hop artist. I won't say who he is because of the story, but he was at my place, and we had to go down to the gas station, as they call it in America, because we ran out of cigarettes, and we've been chain smoking cigarettes. And his car was behind mine. I said, "We'll go in your car," and he went, "I'd rather not." let's go in your car because like it's dark and I'll probably get pulled over by the LAPD. And that to have to think like that is like it was a real like whoa moment. I think maybe because like I had the rolls and everything, he might have wanted to eat a pretty sick car himself. But I didn't want to drive really. But I thought, oh God, now we've got to move the car around. But that's a real day in the life of that gentleman. He has to think it's dark. I don't really want to be driving. It just took away an element of risk.
Yeah.
Crazy.
You have to plan for it, and I think that even spills over into the workplace. I mean, you know, I think coming to Australia has been, you know, really awesome for me because there were times in my career where I couldn't wear my natural hair. You know, I was working for a black boss, you know, in a publicly traded company, and he said, look, you can't wear your afro hair, you know, because what are they going to think? You either pull it back or you straighten it. Like these are
where was this? In
this
Australia?
was in the US. This was in the US.
My God. Wow.
You have to really put in a lot of work and think about you're just black. And that is what I'm talking about, white privilege.
Yeah.
I think a lot of white people don't even have to consider that.
No,
They don't.
We don't.
They don't think about things. It's. I was looking at something on Facebook. Unfortunately, I don't know who it was that was talking, but he was saying about what it's like every day as a person of color when you, as a white person, are just walking the street. You don't have to worry about anything compared to what we go through, where we could just be in the park having a barbecue and a white person calls the police on us because they're suspicious of us. And he said when he got pulled over by the police, it was what you were saying. He immediately put his driver's license insurance on the dashboard, put his hands on the steering wheel before the cop even came to his window, so that, you know, he knew, I'm not here to cause trouble. Like, these are the sort of things that they go through on a daily basis that a lot of white people don't understand.
Yeah, you don't have to be resisting arrest to get shot in the United States as a black person.
Well, you just get
They
harassed
could just
by
think,
police a
oh,
lot of
you're
the
going
time.
for a gun, and you could get a couple popped off into you.
And they
That's not
profile
good.
you as well. They just, it's not good.
How do we change this?
Yeah.
Bridget, obviously, I was saying the other day, I don't know, in America, obviously, you know, it's hard for us to say anything that's going to change something, but I do believe it starts with educating your children and the next generation. I think that's a good start, right?
Taking a good look at yourself as well as a human being and what we might have been taught by our parents and their parents and their parents, because I think a lot of that might be wrong.
Absolutely. And then also, like I said, white privilege isn't a bad thing, but utilize that to educate others. You know, I think what we can also do here is really pay attention to what's happening to our First Nations people, because you know, the first thing that I thought of when I moved here, I was like, where are the Indigenous people in decision-making positions across public, private, you know, government, everywhere? What's going on?
There's nowhere near enough people in those positions. You're right.
And why is there a disproportionate amount of people who, you know, are incarcerated, and, you know, the health outcomes are horrific? But I think really, you know, understanding and giving Indigenous Australians a space to speak is really important. And also, you know, investing in the community, but it needs to be Indigenous led. We can't come in there and tell them how to run things,
do their
but
thing.
provide that kind of level of respect.
Yeah.
I think we can do that on our own land. But something as human as when you see a black person or a brown person or an Indigenous person, say hello.
Yeah. I grew,
You know?
well, I grew up in a household with a stepbrother and a stepsister that are Aboriginal. So from a young age, like the black culture and the white culture were equal in our home. So, but my brother and stepsister, I would hear things that they went through that I wasn't going through, and we were pretty much all around the same age. So it was a real eye opener from a young age. This is
So
a
you
shit
had some
go.
education. You knew
exactly.
what was going down.
Their
That's right.
father, my brother and sister, their father was Aboriginal, and he lived 6 houses down the road from us. And he lived there so he could be a part of their lives. Just because him and the mother didn't work out didn't mean he was going to, you know, abandon his children. A lot of people said, "Oh, you're being abandoned by lucky. You're lucky you've got this dad." And I was like, "No, their dad just lives down the street. He's always coming to the house." Everything's harmonious and nice and lovely.
Carl, you're black.
My sister works for the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Commission in Queensland, and she has about 4 foster children from the Aboriginal community. Beautiful girls. They've all grown up well. They're hilarious. That's maybe why I haven't seen it as obvious as you guys have seen it, because I grew up sort of in a mixed culture
there we
inside
go. He's not
the house.
Black again.
Yeah, I'm black and white again. Tough chat today. We've got a few guests in. Rodney O's here. Brigitte's also in. We're talking about the Black Lives Matter. We're talking about the movement that's happening all around the world where it's okay, everyone's had enough. We all know racism exists and it's everywhere. Some people are worse with the racism than others. And, having a look around the world at the moment, every news station you look at, it's about time. Okay, enough's enough. The governments and the leaders of our world aren't doing anything. It appears that they're not doing much. If they are doing it, it's not working. So we're having a chat this morning.
I was just talking to Brigette off air, and we'll get to that in a second, about ways we can change that level of racism we have in Australia, particularly towards Indigenous people. And I wanted to talk to Brooke Burton, who you may remember, she was on The Bachelor.
Of course.
Unfortunately, she was in the Nick Cummings series, so...
shit go for you, Brooke.
That was a shit go.
Can't even get a go on telly, right?
She joins us now. Hi, Brooke. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
So we want to share experiences this morning with everyone. And you being an Aboriginal young woman, you must have been dealing with this every day of your life in one way or another, right?
Look, growing up in a country town, my family, and especially my mum, unfortunately she's not around anymore to sort of be able to share her experiences, but they were sort of experiences that were sort of passed down to us kids and that we've had to go through as well. And racism obviously being one of those issues.
And you get, I've heard you say on your socials that you get comments like, "Oh, you're pretty for an Aboriginal."
What?
Yeah, there's huge stereotypes, right? And I think one of the videos that I made went viral was basically commenting about how when I was younger and in high school, people, students, my peers, teachers even, would all sort of comment and make these really ignorant and naive comments that, I was too pretty to be Aboriginal, or kind of there was like this confusion around my nationality, and I think that's actually really disappointing, and there is a level of like ignorance and a lack of knowledge around, what does an Aboriginal person look like, and I think it partially is racist because it's basically you're discriminating against a whole race, and I'm very proud to be Aboriginal, and I am very vocal about it. So when you turn around and say those sort of things to me, it does create some confusion and also a bit of anger.
Yeah, of course it would. Brooke, now my stepbrother and stepsister are Aboriginal, and I remember many times when it would come up with a group of friends, or if they would come home and say, someone told me today, I told them I was Aboriginal, and the comment that they got back the most was, what sort of benefits are you on? Has that ever happened to your family? Because that seemed to happen a lot to my family.
Yes. I work with young people, as you guys all know, as a youth worker, and I'm always educating about young people how to respond to those sort of comments. And it's really disappointing that that's the education or the lack of knowledge that people have around Aboriginal people. Like, my family have experienced that, and those sort of I don't even know what to call them, to be honest. But it's just, I think this whole American tragedy has brought light to the level of racism in Australia, and I think Australia needs to sort of look in the mirror and address these issues, and racism being one. Like, there's this huge stereotype. We face it every day, and you can ask any Aboriginal person, and they've probably experienced racism at any point in their life. So, it's a bit disappointing, and sorry that your stepbrother and stepsister had to sort of go through that.
Yeah, well, it was really confronting as a kid to think, I didn't even understand what it meant back then. But but our family, they educated us to what it meant, and then to turn away from those people, or to let those people know, no, I have a job, I do this. I'm a proud Aboriginal. They're the things that, and too often I think a lot of Aboriginal people found it easier just to not confront these people because some people don't want to hear anything. They're so racist. Yeah. They just they can't have their mind changed.
Well, that's exactly, and there's obviously, like I said, the lack of knowledge, right? Like, if you look at, the experiences Aboriginal people have gone through, through colonisation, you understand, why we experience so much. And I think Rodney and Brigette in the last segment really touched on it, that intergenerational trauma, and it's always dealing with the repercussions of it, and it's continuing now in 2020. And I really love the Will Smith quote that he said, and he said, racism hasn't gotten worse, it's just being filmed. And that's exactly it.
Yes.
It is happening, and it's continuously happening.
I just got a shiver because that is what we've been talking about, right?
It's real talk. Shit ain't new, it's just now viewed by you.
That's it. Instead of waiting for CNN or something to put it on TV in the 80s, we can see it on all our social media platforms, and it looks like it is everywhere.
It is.
It is, right?
I think, and you go back to Rodney King, the riots that happened over that in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Now, how long ago was that, guys?
1992, right? Yeah, I think it was.
So was it such a big thing because those things often weren't captured on camera, and that particular incident was, and so people got to see it, and back then you just didn't. It was rare for something to be caught on camera.
For 400 years in the United Snakes of America. It's been going down. The racism is rife and alive and well. You just don't get to see it, and you don't get to hear it because
you hear about it and you think, oh, it can't be true.
Yeah,
some people think that, right?
Because of the ignorance. It's that horrific.
And where do you think, because we've, everyone knows we're not born a racist, this is learned behaviour
That's
we
right.
pick up from. Where do you think it comes from mainly? Is it from family, friends? Is it movies? Is it all to blame? Is there a lot of movies you think that, aren't...
In Australia, it's from a foreign land, came the convicts, the white man it up when the first ship touched the sand, so it's like from day dot.
Yeah,
it's from number one.
Right.
I mean, so and you got those people that are criminals that are in charge of criminals, and it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a no-win.
It's a hard thing to fix. It's not going to be fixed today.
No.
We can start to try and change people's minds today, but this thing needs constant attention. Brooke, I'm going to let you go. I know you need to go.
Thank you, Brooke.
We got lots of phones to get through.
Thanks, Brooke.
Let's go to Michelle now in Chipping Norton.
Hi, Kyle and Jackie.
Good morning.
Hi.
So I just have a very it's a small example, but when it comes to makeup, so for the ladies or the guys, whatever, but when I would walk into Woolworths or Coles, for example, I'm not going to Woolies or Coles to look for makeup, but I remember, in the cosmetic section.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you'll see foundation shades that are catering specifically to white skin. So you'll only see the light shades, and probably the darkest one they'll have is maybe like a deep tan or something.
Right. So you're just not provided for even in the makeup department.
And that's, again, white privilege. These are all the things that contribute to white privilege.
Yes.
Is simple
I never
things
thought
like
of that. I never thought
we
of that.
take for granted.
Not.
Yeah.
Even flesh-colored shoes or flesh-colored bandages, they don't match our skin.
Right.
Band-aids, everything, right?
All of that.
Yeah.
I loved when my little sister, she had a black doll, and that was back in the 80s. But that's one thing. But you're right, the band-aids, the any sort of bandage, I never even thought of
that's
at
it.
all.
I mean, all products are designed to suit white people first, and then black people come second.
Say that again, Jack.
It's true. We are thought of first when it comes to when most companies developing products.
Jane
they think of white
is
people.
on the air from Ryde. You're 21 years old. You're an Aboriginal, Jane. You want to have a chat. Good morning.
Yeah, hi. I just moved back to Sydney from Tamworth.
Yeah.
And, I used to go into, a normal shop, like Cotton On or like Sports Girls to go shopping, and I'd get followed around the shop, and because they thought I was going to steal something.
Because of the colour of your skin, they would tail you around the shop thinking you're going to steal something.
Yes.
See,
the profiling.
What goes? How does? Let's just pull that little slither out. How does that get controlled? Like that seems to be widespread. Bridget, you went through that.
Yeah,
you
that's
said
what
yourself.
we just talked about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How do you stop that sort of mentality?
Training by putting people of color and people of color in position to help their co-workers understand what is really going on.
Yeah.
I don't understand why that's not even just already happening.
We're going to make it happen. We're making it happen. You are making it happen. We are making it happen. All of us that are listening are making it happen. We're making a change, Australia.
Yeah. I see the Aboriginal flag flying outside on a crane this morning. I love that sort of support.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to just see it on one particular day of the year.
Well,
that flag should be up everywhere. The what we call the traditional, what the Australian flag is. There should be an Aboriginal flag up as well.
Man, they're scared. The police, the deaths in custody. Have we discussed that?
No, no.
A lot of deaths of Aboriginals in custody here, over 400. So the police and the Aboriginals, they're scared of each other.
Yeah. 100%.
You need some Indigenous people in the force and not afraid of their blue line that they're carrying. We're all cops. Even if we do some bad shit, you got to agree with us.
I saw that Aboriginal boy
to infiltrate.
Yeah.
That Aboriginal boy just recently arrested a couple of days ago.
And there's a huge vigil that's going on Saturday.
Yeah.
That I think it would be really great if people could rock up and support. And, stand alongside Indigenous Australians to begin to address this issue because it's disgusting.
It is.
Jessica has also called through. Hi, Jessica. How are you?
Hi.
Hi, guys. I'm a bit nervous, so just bear with me.
What are you nervous about?
I don't know.
Is she black?
You guys on the radio before.
Okay. I get it. Well, welcome.
Thank you. Well, I'm not an Indigenous myself, but I do know exactly how it would feel to be treated with racism because I'm a Lob.
You're Lebanese.
I'm Lebanese.
All right, so you're copying racism, and the racism would be this. Is it the same, different? What are you hearing here?
She's brown and got some brownness. You get the brown treatment.
I'm white. I'm probably white Lebanese. I don't know. I'm pretty fair. So when people find out, like I understand when she said, you don't look Lebanese. You don't look Aboriginal. I felt that straight away. I knew what that feels like.
Right.
What does a Leb look like? What does a Wog look like? Like we all look different. Like it doesn't really matter what you look like. Like as in like if you're dark or light coloured skin, fair, blonde, blue, whatever.
I agree.
I felt it. I get it. I know what that feels like. So I'm representing the Wogs out there that have felt racism. And this topic really makes me upset and really angry. I feel it on the daily. If I ever get pulled over, when they see my name on the, because I've got a WOG name.
Yep.
And I feel it. I feel it, and I hate it. And it makes me so angry. And this needs to stop. This needs to end. And I'm glad. I'm not happy this is happening in America, but I'm glad this has brought light to the racism here in Australia. I'm glad that it's being covered on the media. I'm really sad that this is happening all over the world. This is disgusting.
Well, I have noticed that most of the media just seem to be showing us the pictures of things on fire and shops being broken into. I mean, they seem to have moved on from the real reason we're all talking about this today. Have you noticed?
It's a distraction.
Yeah. It's a Trump.
Yeah.
Hey, Felicia, you're on the air. What do you want to say?
So, good morning. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous.
That's okay.
But I just wanted to say, being a black is not a crime. Black matters. All life matters. And underneath our skin tone, we're all the same. But this is not being taught to kids.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think I said this yesterday. I don't even know if I had made it up or in my own mind, because in my mind, we are all the same. The only different, the colour of our skin traditionally came from where we were born on the planet. Is that not right?
But this is not being taught in school, because I got my 5-year-old daughter a couple of years ago playing with some kids, and this kid's telling her, "Oh, you're black. You're brown like chocolate. You can't play with us."
I have to sit
You're
there.
brown like chocolate. You can't play with us.
Wow.
Yes.
And this, how old are you
And
now,
this is-
Felicia? How old are you?
That was a couple of years ago. She was only 5. She just
So
entered
daughter.
into candy.
Oh, that's,
My daughter.
And it's amazing, isn't it, that parents still are not educating their kids about this. I mean,
How could they?
What do you mean, how could they?
They don't know any better.
Oh, you should. Well, that's the thing.
You
I mean,
should.
but you can't educate your child if
you don't know.
think
If you don't know.
if you don't think what you do, how you think, how you act, how you teach your children. If you don't think that's wrong,
very sad.
then you
because
can't
I
teach.
cried-
You know?
That's right.
cried
That's what I
so
meant.
much that I have to empower my daughter. I said, if somebody said that to you, if they can't look at you, tell them don't look. I have to put her down and say to her, look, you are beautiful, you are brown, there's nothing wrong with your skin tone. There's nothing. Then since then she starts thinking, oh, what's wrong with us? How come I'm black? She never asked that question.
Tell her
to me.
she's beautiful and everybody else is going to go and bake in the sun to be like
Well,
her.
not only
Yeah.
that, not only do they bake in the sun to be like her, but
They
how
put
many
some
white
fake shit
people are
on, too.
covering themselves in brown liquid
There you
to be
go.
brown?
Hey, they want to
Yeah.
be the brown.
I've never seen a black person cover themselves in white liquid to be white.
I've seen one. I'm going to send you one of those. I'm going to send you that. Don't worry.
It just doesn't make sense to me.
So-
I don't understand why people are like that.
what we want to do is first, Bridget, we want to go
Bye,
to you
Felicia.
about what we can do in this country, and then we'll give the last word to Kian, who works here at our station as well. So, Bridget, what steps can be made in this country?
Well, there's a couple of things. There is, specifically for the African American community, we have a page. It's African Americans in Australia page. So if
On Facebook.
on Facebook. So if there's any African Americans out there who want to be connected to community, please go ahead and do that. And also we have sisters in Australia and New Zealand, which is good. I just wanted to highlight one specific project that I'm working on at the University of Technology, Sydney, and it's the Indigenous Residential College, which is going to be the first Indigenous residential college specifically built for Indigenous Australians.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah.
Which is really amazing. It's a 250 bed facility, purpose built, designed, from top to bottom with Indigenous Australians. And I think that it's really important because for me, education has always been
The key.
a key.
Yeah.
And if we can increase the Indigenous participation numbers going into higher education, perhaps that would make a huge difference in people getting careers and being in those decision-making positions.
Yes.
So I think supporting and getting behind a project
Shout
like that
out.
is really
Dr. Roberta
very-
Sykes. Dr.
Yeah.
Roberta Sykes graduated from Harvard, Indigenous woman. We need more of those
Wow.
minds.
Yeah, absolutely we do.
So in order to
Yeah.
make those changes, get behind some of the organizations that are doing the work in the community and also getting behind some of these big projects to make long systemic change.
Which I think is where we really have to work on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it isn't going to change overnight. But
No.
let's look at the long term, and education is a really important part of that. So I think what you're doing, Bridget, is wonderful, and that is a great step
It is.
to being on our way.
And
Absolutely.
and if everyone listening today can talk to their children, their friends,
Yes.
their work colleagues, bring up the fact we spoke about this on the radio today. Ask people, what do you think? How can we make the smallest change in our work environment? Or talk to your children about other children in the playground and how important it is that we all know that we are all the same.
All the same, that's right. Kian, we're going to leave
Come
the
on,
last
Kay.
word to you.
Kick it, Kay.
Kian.
Kick it, Kay.
Hi, everybody.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. I'm actually, my heart's pounding right now because I feel like this is a very important topic to address, and I've never sort of been this vulnerable and open about any of this type of conversation. So
Don't worry, brother. I
it's great.
cried the other day on television, so I know what it's like to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It is, yeah.
But it needs to be spoken about.
It definitely does. So first off, I just think it's worth mentioning that 99% of the people involved in this movement are all about peacefulness,
Yep.
and they genuinely want to change.
Yes.
But the question is, what is that change? Of course, we can implement, classes in schools, or we can have conversations with our kids. We can run events with the youth, etc. But I kind of feel, and I like to think that we've been doing that. But I just don't think that that's what's working. I don't have the answers to exactly how to fix a situation, but I do have a couple of suggestions on the mindset that we can adopt going into this. Right now, the world is sort of struggling through a painful situation that I think we can launch off this, a shift in the way that we view things and approach this. But I feel like that worldwide change needs to come from an individual change. So to keep it plain and simple, I think the first step would be to be aware of our ego. Understanding that our ego is the part of us that generates the greed, that makes us judgmental. It gives us a false sense of entitlement, and I do believe that that's what racism is, right? To think that you are more entitled than another person of color. So I think it's important we pay attention to when those things are arising inside of us, and to immediately, as you pay attention, it's automatically putting a stop to any behavior that continues after that. Secondly, we all live our lives through different perspectives. I mean, Kyle, the way you see things, Jackie, the way you see things, Brigette, and Rodney O, we all see things differently to the way I see things. But I think what we do share is the fact that whatever we do see is a reflection of ourselves.
Yes.
Wow, yeah,
so yeah, which is crazy, because it's just like saying that the world is one giant mirror. Do you know what I mean? So why would we judge a fellow brother or sister when really you're just judging yourself?
Yeah.
And that's something I think is very important to touch on as well, because you give what you get. Yeah.
So true, man.
Yeah. As a victim of racism, police brutality, I mean, I've been put in hospital for 2 nights after an altercation with the police where I was bashed, injured, dropped off at a medical center, no paperwork, and I couldn't walk for 6 weeks.
Oh my God.
So definitely being a part of this and having to go through that was a massive hurdle to get over. But I think that right now, and all the hardships that anyone that's gone through any oppression, it's an opportunity for us to heal, to transform, and to make a difference. And I think that will lead to the strength and courage to love. And the strongest person in the room, which this is so true, and I truly believe this, the strongest person in the room is a person that can love no matter how much pain comes with that love.
That's right.
But we as our entire race right now, we're at the most important time in our history. We get to decide whether we choose to move forward with hatred and violence or with peace and love. So
on with the peace.
So I urge all our leaders, our bosses, our Joe Blows, our Instagram models to embrace this movement towards a truly equal world. And the way to do that, and this is the hardest part, is forgiveness. How do we forgive, though? How do we forgive a man that murdered someone in broad daylight? How do we forgive the people that raped our great-grandmothers? They stole them. They murdered them. How do we forgive that? That's the question. But I think eventually we will.
But through love, I think.
Said. I think eventually we will. But
yeah, it can hurt. You can forgive. You don't have to forget.
Never forget.
And this is the point it comes to, is that the pain will always be there, but the pain will remind us of how far we've come when this is done and when we do move forward with peace and love. So I just want to put it out there as a challenge to our world leaders and a challenge to ScoMo. How did you address coronavirus? Because really, racism is a virus that's been here for millennia. You created a plan. You executed. You gathered your experts. You executed that plan. And look at how healthy and safe our country is. We lead the world with health and safety because of the plan that our political leaders put in place. Why is that not happening right now with racism? Because that virus is what affects us spiritually and mentally, therefore physically too. So I think that what we need to do is put together a group of experts, including youths from all different types of races, that can help decide the world we want to live in.
If only we could do that. I think you are 100% right.
Got to get rid of the greed and the power.
Come up with a plan.
And put it this way, everyone walks into their workplace now, and what do you see? 1.5 meters distance. Wash your hands. Sanitize. Why don't we see... This is how you can beat racism. This is how you can show love.
Yeah.
Why don't we have
Amazing.
that? So I feel like those are the small things that we can put inside our buildings, the small things that it only takes how many minutes to print off a poster?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm way beyond printing posters.
But let's be real. Like, that's all it takes. So I think that at the end of the day, I choose to forgive. I forgive those police officers that brutally bashed me. I forgive the people that have been racist to me in my past. I'm just putting it out there that I want to put my first foot forward and say that that's what I choose, and I choose love.
Train the brain to
unbelievable. I'm going to give it a round of applause. That was unbelievable. Thank you, Kian. Thank you, Rodney O.
Last man standing.
Thank you very much, Bridget, too. And wow.
Thank you, Bridget and Rodney O. It's been a pleasure. And Kian, that was amazing. Thank you, guys.
The Kyle and Jackie O Show.